And we're on. You're quarterbacking this thing, or I'm going to
Yeah,
quarterback it.
no, I got you. I think my mic was muted actually.
All right.
There we go.
Well,
Hey, how many
well, it
times we
wouldn't be
messed
it
up the
wouldn't be
beginning?
fight
That's
week. It wouldn't be fight week on five if we didn't miss our cue every single week, right?
I
Although I
think
think last
that's
week we did hit it,
yeah.
right?
I think last week was the first week you got it right. So if you're new to the show, that's not new to the show. We've always messed at the beginning. So
Yeah.
welcome to Fight Week on Fire, brought to you by the Five Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host Jonathan, aka Three Priest Combo. Right next to me, we got the Fight Genius, Alf Artiaga. How you doing, my friend?
Great,
Good,
great.
good to hear.
Excited for Saturday. Like I need four eyes to be able to watch all this stuff on Saturday, right?
Honestly, you're gonna need like three monitors to make sure you can watch everything that's going on. Like, there's so many fights going on this weekend. It's such a packed weekend. But before we get to next weekend, let's go back to last weekend. We had an epic main event: Davison Figueiredo taking on Moreno, and my God,
Mhm.
close to being fight of the year. What do you think about that fight? How did you score it?
Oh, first of all, let's applaud applause to the UFC because I looked at that card and I'm like, okay, it's interesting. It's nothing to get really, really excited about. It was a bangbuster card. Great card, up and down the card. I enjoyed every single second of it. Great fights, great performances. And we're going to talk about one in a little bit. But yeah, what a main event. And fight of the year candidate, maybe I don't know, Joanna versus Weili Zhang. Yeah, okay. Like how are you gonna top that? You can't top that. That was a Rocky fight. Okay, that was a Rocky movie. You know what I
That's the
mean?
best female fight in the history of time. Like,
It
you
might
know
be
what I
the
mean?
best fight in the history of time. Period.
100%.
Okay, if we're gonna go across all sports, it was one of the greatest fights ever. Really, like you had to go back to have such a war. You got to go back to Thomas Hearns, Marvin Hagler in their 3-round fight for the middleweight title, and that was what 1985, okay, or
Yeah, way
something like
before my
that.
time. Way before my time.
All right, so yeah, I know, no, this was a great fight. So, fight of the year probably not going to happen. Although, what a fight! What a fight! I enjoyed every second of it. And it's one of those fights that when you come to the end of it, I didn't have any money on it, okay? But you come to the end of it and you're kind of rooting for a draw. Like I was sitting there, I'm like, you know what? Let's even if it probably because I for a second there when the fight ended, I looked at it and I was like, you know what? Figure was the better fighter. Figueredo was the better fighter. He probably deserves a decision here because I was thinking about when he hit him, when he hit him low on that kick.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's a point, but you really didn't warn him beforehand, but it was so bad that you just had to deduct the point. So yeah, if that's going to come into play, absolutely, it was a draw. I was rooting for a draw, although I did think that Figueredo was the better fighter, and with a full camp, I would say Figueredo has a clear advantage because I thought Moreno fought his heart out in that fight.
Yeah, I agree. We all know the real winners on Saturday were all the betting bookies because the people that didn't bet the draw lost their money. So those are the people that's who really won last Saturday. But I
Yeah.
did score it as a draw. I think Figgy got the first two, Moreno got the third, which made it a 10-8. So it came down to the last two rounds, and I think Moreno got the fourth and Figueiredo got the fifth because
Mm-hmm.
Moreno really slowed down in the fifth. They both slowed down in the fifth because they were throwing such a high pace through the first four rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a good fight, and I think it ended up as it should be, which is a draw. And it's perfect because it sets up a rematch, and
Yeah.
that's the most interesting fight at 125 right now. And you can say Cody Garbrandt or if anybody else wants to drop down, but because of what Brandon Moreno showed on Saturday, he showed he's a legit threat for that belt, and he's still young. You know what I mean? So he's going to be a legit threat in that division for a long time. He has really good wrestling. He only showed a little bit. I think only got 2 out of 5 takedowns during that fight, but
Mm-hmm.
he really showed that he's a good complete fighter. And I think Figueredo does win a little bit easier next time, but I
Yeah.
think Moreno is still a huge threat to that fight. So that goes into the next one. Who do you think wins that second fight?
Yeah, I think Figueredo wins the second fight, but I don't think all is lost for Moreno unless if he gets flatlined in the first 30 seconds. Obviously, that's not going to be a good thing, right? But I think he's going to put up a good fight. He's going to put up a good showing, and I think he'll be the standard bearer going forward in that division because I do think that Figueredo is going to be moving up very soon. If not after the next fight, I would say within the next year he'll be moving on to bigger and better things at a different division.
And I think that's perfect for him. I think it's perfect for him to clean out the best fighter in the division, which seems to be outside of him, Moreno.
Mm-hmm.
And if he does that, perfect for him to go to 135 because it sets up for him to just do great things. And he's such a big guy already. He's almost 150 pounds. So moving to
Mm-hmm.
135, it's going to be interesting to see how he competes with those guys that have a little more power and can take a little bit more heavy shots. Going to the Coleman event, it wasn't as fun, but we did have a good couple of moments in that fight. Tony Ferguson versus Charles Oliveira. What a great fight that was. End of the first round, Tony was in an amazing arm lock, and he refused to tap out. And I don't know how he didn't tap, and I don't know how his arm wasn't broken by the end of the
Yeah.
fight. And I don't think there was anything that came back negative on his arm. So it just showed the toughness of El Cucuy, and he just showed how tough he is. But he did lose. He got dominated pretty well. So that really
Yeah.
gets you asking the question: is Tony Ferguson done, or is Charles Oliveira such a legitimate threat in this division that he just overpowered Tony Ferguson?
Well, we talked about it, right? We talked about it on the last show we did. I said if he loses, it might be time to say, you know what? I'm taking a year off, and I'm making one last run at a title, and that's a wrap. So if I'm Tony Ferguson, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm saying, you know what? I'm not doing nothing for the next 3 months. Then I'm going to get into a camp. I'm going to try to hone my skills as well as I can, and I'm going to tell Dana, give me Justin Gaethje, okay? Give me Justin Gaethje, and I'll give you a fight. And that's it. Make one more last run because I think that's all really that's left. It's just the mileage. The mileage
Yeah.
has caught up with Tony
Mm-hmm.
Ferguson. I was wrong in our last show. I was wrong. I said, you know what really was wrong with Tony Ferguson? He just has the one loss and some injuries. Well, it seems like it has caught up with him. Or maybe we're not giving Charles Oliveira the credit he deserves. Maybe he really is that good. And I'll tell you this: if Charles Oliveira is that good, I want to see him against Khabib. I want to see him against the best in the division because that was extremely impressive.
Yeah, he was just so dominant, and just the way he did it, Tony Ferguson damages people, and
Yeah.
outside of one elbow, which Tony was going to get something in there that was going to hurt Oliveira, but outside of like the
Mm-hmm.
one elbow that cut Oliveira on the left side of his head, he didn't do too much damage, and he was on his back the whole time, and he tried scrambling. I think he tried to went for an Imanari roll, and he tried to do some other things, but he wasn't able to get the fight and make it really a brawl where it's something where it's
Mm-hmm.
just back and forth. He was getting controlled. He was going against somebody that's so good on the ground that he wasn't able to work off his back like he normally would against people that were just only good wrestlers. So I don't think Tony Ferguson is done. I think we could see something like a Randy Couture where he makes a late run late in his career just because Tony
Mm-hmm.
Ferguson is so well equipped. So he's such like a Swiss Army knife. He can do a lot of things well in the octagon. So I don't think he's done yet. And I do think Charles Oliveira is a legit threat. Uh,
Yeah.
he's he's so good. 8 straight fights, 7 finishes in a row before destroying Tony Ferguson. So he's a legit threat. And I think if you give him somebody like a Justin Gaethje and he takes him down, or even if he gets taken down, and he puts on his back. He has a potential to sub these guys. And a Khabib fight where him versus such a legit threat as a submission specialist, Khabib struggled the most against RDA because
Mm-hmm.
RDA was so good on the ground as well. But if you give him somebody that can strike as well as Oliveira, and he's a little bit younger, so makes little things a little bit interesting. It would be fun to see Khabib come back and face Oliveira. Do I think that's what's going to happen? No, but it would be something fun to see. Now,
Now
getting
let me
into
let me ask you before we move on. What would you like to see if he does do what I said? Take the year off and make one last run. Would you like to see him run it back with Charles Oliveira, or would you like to see him against Justin Gaethje again?
I think for him, probably just to get his name out there, the loser of the Connor and Dustin fight would be a good way to
Okay.
come back. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because those guys are going to do pretty good damage, so you can see those, and they're top names. So top names don't fight quite as much. So you could see maybe not a full year layoff, but like an 8-month layoff for Tony, where he returns for like international fight week sometime in July, and he
Mm-hmm.
fights, Conor McGregor. If he loses, Conor McGregor and Tony Ferguson is an epic fight to come back, and then the winner of that fight, hey, Khabib, come back. You have one of these two guys that are really shiny objects that'll bring you a whole lot of money. If you get your mother's blessing, come back. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that would be the best thing for him. Or if Michael Chandler shows that he's a legit threat in division and he beats somebody of name, let's say he beats Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson would be an interesting fight just because of the name power of Tony
Mm-hmm.
Ferguson. But it would be interesting to see how he sets up with all these people in division. I think the loser of Dustin versus Connor would be the best thing for Tony Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So moving on to we had some impressive fights in this card, but I think the most unique finish of the night was Kevin Holland off of his back, using his leg as kind of like a boomerang and knocking out Jacare Souza. Where does that rank in KO for the year for you? Because I mean, Buckley's up there, of course, and but as
Yeah.
far as uniqueness goes, that's the only time I've seen a guy off his back knock somebody out clean like that, clean. What do you think?
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it before. And I remember I was like, wait a minute, Kevin Holland, Kevin Holland, Kevin Holland. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I know who this guy is. I've seen this guy fight. This guy's fun to watch.
Four
The
times this year
fight,
already. Five times after that fight.
yeah, and when the fight gets going, I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, like this is not good for him. Like Jacare Souza, I guess evidently he's back. Oh, wait a minute, what was that? And I saw it, and it's instant superstar status. I watched it, and the first thought in my mind was, I can't wait to see this guy fight again. Like I want to see him again. And he was talking about, I'll run it back in a week, all right,
Yeah,
if
against
I
Kazmat
can,
Shemaev. What?
which is kind of crazy. Okay,
Right.
all right, let's get a good camp in. But yeah, I don't think we're gonna see him in 2020. But he's a guy that I got circled for 2021. The first time he shows up on a card, I'm going to make sure I'm there to see that fight and stop everything else because the guy is that's star power. When you
Yeah.
can do things like that, that's star power. And I don't know, does the UFC give out a Fighter of the Year award? Because I don't know if he deserves
Yep.
it because
Yeah.
there's others that do, but he belongs on that short list, right?
Yep. Yeah. I have been marked in for fight of the year. I said it after Saturday. I mean, he
Mm-hmm,
has 5 fights
mm-hmm.
in the COVID era, not even the whole year because he didn't fight the first 3 months of the year. In the COVID era, since March, he has 5 fights, 4 finishes, and a decision. Nobody
Wow.
has that many fights or wins in that time period. He's probably accumulated like $250,000 in bonus money alone from Dana White. And people got to remember, he made his debut short notice against Thiago Santos,
Which is crazy.
which is crazy. And he was so close to submitting him. And he didn't win. He won on Dana White's Contender Series, but he didn't get a contract because he won by decision. And the thing with him that what Dana White has said is he was talked during the fight. And if you watch all of his fights, you watch his previous fight against Joaquin Buckley, the guy who has the current knockout of the year. He says that he likes to see the people that he's son go off and do great things. So his son, Joaquin Buckley, is growing up. He's doing great things. He's become a
Yeah.
superstar. You know what I mean? Knocking out Impa Kasanganay with that brutal kick. But he is so fun to watch. He talks while he's in the ring and while he's fighting. He's just one of those guys that have superstar power. And there's one more guy that's coming up this next weekend that I think has that superstar power. And we'll talk about him when we get to there with Michel Pereira because he's really good too. But before we get to that, we have some really, really good boxing coming up. First, Friday, we got Triple G showing up. What do you think about that fight coming out?
Well, it's going to be a squash, okay? But it's going to be fun to watch Triple G because Triple G always gives you your money's worth, okay? The opponent may not be all that great, although as of late, Triple G has fought some fights that are kind of interesting on their own because they've been in doubt for most of the fight until he finishes them. But this one, it should be a fight that he should finish. But Triple G always, like I said, he's always going to give you his money's worth because you're going to see the skill and you're going to see the killer instinct. As of late, he's gone for the knockout. He wants to get him out of there. He wants to look good on Friday, leading into Canelo on Saturday, because I'm certain that that's what he wants. He wants Canelo Cinco de Mayo weekend in Las Vegas,
That's
finish
lots
up
of
the
money.
trilogy,
Lots of money.
and that will be, I would say, the purse in excess of $150 million, maybe
Yep.
75 million each guaranteed. So yeah, he wants to look good on Friday. I think he will look good on Friday. It's Triple G. He's coming to the end of it, but he's coming to the end of it unlike other guys that come to the end of it. He's coming to the end of
Gracefully.
it with a lot of skill and still that killer instinct, and he still has a lot of mileage. Like where are his wars? His wars, Canelo Alvarez. That's where his wars are at. So he's not as used up as a boxer at his age should be at this point.
Yeah, he's aged gracefully, and I think that's something that's really shown in this era. Just the nutrition and the training, everybody's understanding how to take care of these bodies. So these fighters are aging more gracefully, and unlike a lot of the previous fighters, where you see they just run down all the way till they can't fight anymore, and they're just embarrassing to watch almost. So it's good to
Mm.
see him really continue doing as well as he does. Moving on to Saturday, we have Canelo versus Callum Smith for the WBA World and the Ring Magazine Super Middleweight titles. Before we break down that fight, do you think Canelo is the number one pound for pound greatest fighter of today?
Well, let's look at the resume, right? Okay, he has the two fights against Triple G. In my opinion, he lost the first one. Okay, a lot of people think he lost the second one. I don't. Okay,
Right.
I've looked at that fight. I watched that fight live, and when I watched it live, I was like, you know what? He won this decision. And then I rewatched it because a friend of mine was telling me, man, you got to watch that again because you're giving Canelo some of those middle rounds too easily because he looked fresh and because he looked fast and he looked slick. No, he won those rounds. Okay, Triple G was reeling from round 4 on until he picked it up toward the end of the fight. I gave Canelo clearly that second fight. He won the second fight. Then what does he do? Okay, he tinkers around, but then ends up fighting a fight that everybody thought was insane for him to take, moving up
So much.
two weight
Yeah. So
classes
much.
to fight Kovalev, and everybody was thinking, okay, this is a setup. Kovalev is a power puncher, so what is Canelo going to do? He's probably going to box his face off for 12 rounds. It's going to be boring, and he's going to win like a 10-2 decision. No, he actively went out to take out Kovalev. Kovalev was the one actually boxing and winning on the scorecards.
Right.
There was desperation. He needed a knockout to win, and he got it.
He delivered.
Okay? But I'm sorry. I cannot take my eyes off of Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford. That's the class in boxing. Canelo is the pay-per-view king. In fact, they're billing it as that. They're calling it the pay-per-view king returns. I'm really going to be interested to see the pay-per-view numbers for Canelo. Canelo always does bang-up numbers, but it's an expensive pay-per-view fight with nothing on the undercard. There's
No,
one
nothing.
prospect on the undercard, okay? Mark Castro is on the undercard. He's an interesting guy. He's going to start at featherweight at 126 pounds, although he's 5'8", but he says he could carry 160, so he plans on fighting at 154 eventually. He's making his debut. I've been hearing about this kid for like 3 years. All right. He had a 177 and 1 amateur record. That's
Wow.
insane. That's Lomachenko type
Right.
numbers, right?
Such
So he's
volume.
making his debut, and then what else is on the card? Nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think Canelo, he's not the best pound for pound boxer in the world, but it's not really his fault. He's at a weird weight. He's never been able to cut weight. Remember, Canelo's only 5'8". Okay, which is kind of interesting because we're going to talk about the fight now coming up.
Yeah.
All right, but Canelo has he's always struggled to get down the weight, which I thought was the most interesting thing that Floyd Mayweather ever did. He forced him to fight at a catch weight, almost 7 pounds below the weight that he had trouble making in the first place.
Because he's so dense, he's so muscular, he doesn't carry that much fat. Cutting weight, he just dropping that water weight isn't as easy for him.
Yeah, that's why it was easy for him to go up to fight Kovalev because all he did was what, I'm just going to train and I'm not going to cut.
I'm just gonna eat.
Yeah, I'm gonna come in the way I usually walk around. You know what I mean? And for a guy like Triple G, yeah, Triple G is gonna tell him, I'm not fighting you at 168. We're fighting at 160 where we fought the first 2 times. So then Canelo's gonna actually have to actively go out and cut like 20 pounds to get into a fight with Triple G, and then that's where we're gonna see the magic. But no, he's not the best pound for pound fighter in the world. But he's its biggest draw, its biggest name.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you, but he's definitely the biggest name. Once Mayweather was gone, it's him and Pacquiao as far as name recognition on the boxing mountain right now.
Yeah, and by the way, let me say something. Because we're kind of like America centric. If we're really gonna talk globally, Anthony Joshua is the biggest name in boxing because Tyson Fury has basically thrown in as an American fighter because he has an American promotion and he only fights in the United States now. He fights only exclusively in Las Vegas. Anthony Joshua can sell out Wembley Stadium if they allowed it. He could put 100,000 fans in the seats, and he'll sell 3 million pay-per-views in England. So Anthony Joshua is probably the biggest name in boxing right now.
Now, moving on to his opponent, Callum Smith. He's obviously a little bit way bigger coming into this fight. What other unique threats do you think he poses for Canelo in this fight?
Well, Callum Smith is he's slick, okay, but he knows how to fight, okay. He knows how to move in the ring. He knows how to steer fighters, and that's going to be key in this one because, as you said, he's 6'3" and Canelo's 5'8". All right, I understand that he already went up against Kovalev, but Kovalev is not 6'3". All right, Callum Smith is a guy who can anchor you with his jab and then move you. If he can do that, and he can do that consistently, he can frustrate Canelo, and he can win a decision. Now, I know that it's weird to say, okay, we're going to see Canelo Alvarez fight. It's a spectacle. There's going to be 30,000 Mexicans there going crazy, although, it is COVID. So I believe they're only going to, I think, well, I don't know what they're allowing in the Alamo Dome. What is it, 10,000?
Yeah, probably like 30% capacity. So that's probably a rough estimate. Correct.
Yeah, they're gonna allow like 10,000. Trust me, 9,900 are gonna be Mexicans because he has a fan base unlike any other. Every time you watch Canelo, that's part of the fun in watching Canelo is having such a partisan crowd. Okay, I don't know if you watched his Triple G fights. If you watched his
Mm-hmm.
run up to the two Triple G fights, like those are partisan crowds. It's odd, right, that you watch a fight and one fighter has like the entire crowd with him.
It's just a complete home. It's like a college game.
Yeah, so it's
They're
always fun to
insane.
watch that for Canelo. So if he can survive, the crowd oohing and eyeing and pressing on the judges, because trust me, they do. Then yeah, if he can take it 12 rounds, he can win. Can he take out Canelo? Well, we've seen it. Who can? Nobody can. Nobody has. So it's probably not going to happen. It's probably not going to be Callum Smith, but Callum Smith is absolutely a legitimate fighter. It's not a setup. This is a real fight at 168 to unify the 168 title. It's worth watching. Maybe it's not worth the pay-per-view dollars because what a bad undercard. But it's absolutely a legitimate fight, and there is some danger here. There is danger for Canelo Alvarez on Saturday night.
Yeah, if you guys can find a legal link to
Mm-hmm.
watch the fight, it's always good and beneficial to save some dollars at the end of the day, especially during the holiday time. So be in the holiday spirit, But yeah, I do think he is. It's not a setup fight. He's undefeated. His last 5 fights, 3 of them have gone to decision, and he's knocked out I think the 19 other of his 27 fights that he's fought so far. So he's really stiffened up his competition as well. I do think if he's able to try to stick and move a little bit more. Make sure that he stays in front. Oh, stays aggressive because we know Canelo. He's so good at staying aggressive whilst being defensive and making his opponents miss. If he's able to stay on the front foot, I think he has a little bit more of a threat in this fight. So how do you think Callum Smith wins this fight coming in?
Okay, Callum Smith has to win. Like I said, he's going to have to anchor him with that jab, throw a lot of them, move him around the ring, frustrate him, tie him up. Don't let the referee. And I know it's hard to say that you can't let the referee do something, but there is something you can do. Okay, you could do it enough and force the referee to piss off the fans and piss off the promoters by deducting a point. So throw jabs when he comes in with a rush because he's going to have to. He's a smaller man. To get inside, he's going to have to speed up the fight, right? Throw your jabs, throw your combination, stay on the outside, anchor him with the jab, and as soon as he comes in, just time up. And I know, it's boring, but that's how you're gonna have to win because you're not gonna knock him out. Because if you knock him out, you're gonna have to take chances, and taking chances against Canelo Alvarez usually doesn't work out. It's
And
not
you
a
let him
good
get
thing.
inside, and then that's it for you.
Yeah, so that's what you're gonna have to do. So you're gonna have to force the referee. Now, if the referee's gonna start deducting points, then what are you gonna say? You know what I mean?
Right.
But you're a champion. You deserve some respect. Just do that. Anchor him with your jab, and then clinch when he comes in because he's going to have to rush in to get in. He's not going to box his way in. He's not going to jab his way in like he usually likes to do. Because Canelo, he likes to paw at you. He likes to paw, and then he gets inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you're catching his jabs, they're all coming really soft. You're not noticing that he's getting closer and closer. You know what
He's
I mean?
working behind it. He's using it just as a mirage to keep you
Yeah, to
guessing
keep
what's
to
going to
keep
go
you thinking
next.
about, okay, why does this guy keep pawing
Right.
with this worthless jab here
It's nothing. It's doing
that I
nothing
keep
to me. It's just
catching, and
annoying
then all of
me.
a sudden here come the combinations.
Right.
So you got to time up. You got to time up. It's gonna have to be a boring fight. It's just
Yeah.
gonna have to be a boring fight. That's how you're gonna have to win.
Yeah. Being once he gets inside, if Canelo gets inside and works the body and starts getting there, it's going to be over for him. So, like you said, really tying it up, making it a boring fight where he can keep his distance, and then once he gets close, hey, just grab him, make the ref have to split it up, so you have your distance at that point. Now, Canelo obviously he has a clear advantage coming into this fight. How do you think he wins this fight coming in?
Well, he's gonna have to press a pace, right? That's what Canelo always does. So pressing a pace, not waiting to, not easing into the fight as he's had in the past, right? Like if he fights the Kovalev fight, as impressive as that was, he could lose to Caleb Smith. Okay, so I would say, yeah, he has to press a pace from the first round, from the opening bell, press a pace, and then break him down. Break down Callum Smith. Get get lower, get under his jab, and throw to the body. Throw those left hooks to the body that you're famous for, and that should soften him up and open up for the exchanges. Open up for the exchanges, invite him for the exchanges, induce exchanges by getting under him and throwing hooks to the body. Okay, because Callum Smith is a counterpuncher, but he also has a good jab, right? So if you duck under his jab and you throw body blows, you throw left hooks to the body, that's going to induce combinations back. A combination back is a good opportunity to counterpunch off of that combination, and you could create the exchanges that you need to be able to win the fight. And that's what Canelo has to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think coming in, the main thing he has to do is he has to be slick defensively. He's so good at combining head movement with glove protection. A lot of time when you see boxers, they're either all gloves up in the head or in the hands, or they're all head movement. He does such a good job using his hips, getting low, and I think his height disadvantage might come to his advantage because if he makes Callum Smith have to go so low because he's always dipping low to get in, he might be able to get inside a little bit easier and make it harder for him to wrap up. So I think first thing first, obviously, be on that front foot, but while you're on the front foot, keep doing that head movement and keep that slick defense. And important thing as well is moving forward, he has to set traps. You know what I mean? As for somebody like a counterpuncher, you have to counterpunch the counterpuncher. So he has to set those traps, make sure that he gets the good reads, and I think this is a fight where we're going to see Canelo improve as the fight goes on because he's going to make his reads early, he's going to set his traps early, and then he's going to move on. And I think if he can do all those things, that he's going to win this fight. I'm going to say round 10 TKO. I think he's going to knock him out late. I think he's going to get his reads early, set those traps, and Callum Smith is not going to be able to hit him as much as he wants to. It's going to frustrate him. He's going to have to overextend himself. And then later in the fight, when he has to overextend himself to get a finish, Canelo is going to go ahead now and put him out. How do you think this one goes?
I'm right there with you, and I'll add a little bit to the prediction. I'll say the same round, the 10th round. Canelo Alvarez gets a TKO stoppage in the 10th round, but I'll throw a little bit into the prediction. He will be behind on the scorecards when he stops Callum Smith in the 10th round.
Fair, fair enough. Now we talked about a little bit. Who was the other fighter on the card that you were looking forward to looking to? Because there's nothing else on this card really.
Well,
It's a
I
pretty
was looking
empty for
up
this card.
I was looking up some stuff on him so I could, educate our listeners. Mark Castro. Okay, Mark Castro is going to fight at featherweight. His opponent was TBD. Okay, I don't know who TBD is, but I think it means to be determined, which means they're
It
finding
says
somebody.
it says here Luis Javier Valdez. He's 6-5-1. It's an unconfirmed rumor on Tapology right now. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
lost
he's
two in
gonna.
a
He's
row.
okay. He's probably gonna get knocked out.
Yeah,
Okay,
probably.
but it's gonna be fun because you're gonna see a guy make his debut that in 5 years' time, maybe 5 years' time, might be fighting for a title. His amateur record, like I said, is insane. Even more important, he was a 16-time national champion.
Oh
Okay,
wow.
that's hard to do. Okay, there's only 4 national championships in Golden Glove boxings a year, which means he's 21, right? So let's say we know he didn't win it this last year because he was training for his debut for an entire year because he's had already 2 fights canceled because of COVID. Okay, not because he had COVID, but because events got canceled because of the
Mm,
pandemic. Okay, so it wasn't his fault that he couldn't make his debut. So if he's a 16-time national champion, you got to think of it like this. Let's say he won his last 4 national championships at the age of 19. That means that he's been winning national championships since the age of 15.
right.
Okay. Okay.
This dude might be a
So,
prodigy.
all right. So I don't know. He's a three-time national silvers Golden Glove champion. You have to be 18 years old to enter that. So that means that he won every single year. So we're talking about an insane amateur record making his debut. So it's going to be fun. It's not going to be much of a fight, but they're making him the co-main event, which is interesting, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's
So so maybe Canelo wants to promote him going forward. So it'll be fun just to see him and dust off whoever this is that they're going to give him. And then in 5 years' time, say, hey, I saw his debut. I saw his debut. You
right.
know?
And he's fighting for a title. So Luis Javier Valdez, I'm sorry, brother. We don't mean to put any disrespect in your name, but you might get squashed coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, it's not going to be
Now,
pretty.
now getting into some rapid fire. We've been going for a little bit while. We do have a UFC card as well Saturday. Lots of big names coming in. Starting with the main event, we have Jeff Neal, Hands of Steel. Dude's a monster coming in,
Yes.
taking on the master technician Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Who do you think has the better striking?
Wow. It's a rough one, right? Like Wonder Boy has pretty shots, right? He has those beautiful kicks. Okay, he looks great boxing. Okay, he looks great as far as footwork. But man, Neil, I don't know. Neil does look like he has more power to me.
Yeah, yeah, he has a lot more power for
Okay,
sure.
so I think that's his shot in this one, right? That's his shot. That's how
Mm-hmm.
he can win, right? Although I'm afraid Wonder Boy does have an experience edge on him. It's a main event. He wants one more last shot at a title. So I think it happens for him. But it doesn't happen for him spectacularly. He wins a decision. He runs out the clock on Neil. Neil come back after this.
Yeah, yeah. I'm agree with you on there. I think Wonderboy he's so masterful with his striking. You know what I mean? He's so good where he makes his reads. And like you said, I think the longer this fight goes, the more it favors Wonderboy Stephen Thompson because coming in, Jeff Neal has 8 knockouts. Wonderboy has 7. Wonderboy has 7 decisions. Jeff Neal only has 3. So you
Mm.
see, if Jeff Neal doesn't get that knockout, he really doesn't have as big of a chance coming in as much as Wonderboy because Wonderboy can work you throughout the course of a fight. So I do think this is something where we see Jeff Neal definitely has the power advantage. And I think if he's going to win this fight, he'll win it probably in the second or third round by knocking Wonderboy out clean. Because we've seen a lot of times Wonderboy just get knocked out clean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where he'll get stunned, and that's the only way he'll get knocked out. He doesn't really get overpowered. He'll just get that one quick strike, and then that's it for Wonderboy. So I think that's Jeff Neal's path to victory in this fight. But I do think he'll put up a good fight. Wonderboy coming in, I think he was like you said, he has the experience edge, he has the striking edge as far as the technique goes. He'll make his reads sort of like Canelo coming in as far as the striking goes, and he'll make his reads. The later this fight goes, the better it'll become for him. Now, moving on to the co-main event, we got Jose Aldo taking on Marlon Chito Vera. Aldo coming in 3 straight losses. His last one, I believe, was against Peter Yan, which was
Mm.
not that was such a hard fight to watch for him. And on the other hand, we have Chito Vera, who took out the hype train of Sean O'Malley with a leg
Yeah.
kick. And both guys, such phenomenal strikers, such great leg kicks. Who do you think wins this one? Do you think Aldo can come in and win it and prevent going on a 4-fight losing streak where Dana White's cutting a lot of fighters right now? Or do you think Chito Vera is next man up?
I think Jose Aldo will be in Bellator in a year. Okay. And I think that Cheeto Vera is the one who's going to do it. I bought into the Sean O'Malley hype train.
I did too.
I don't think I was completely being sold by the hype. I think he's for real.
He's good.
I think he ran into Marlon Vera, and Marlon
Mm-hmm.
Vera is really a tough fighter. And I think I'm not going to call it a setup because in boxing they call these things like setups. But I think Jose Aldo is set up for a bad night, and I think Cheeto Vera is going to make it happen. And I would say Cheeto Vera by knockout, not in the
Yeah.
first round, but give him some time, early third.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think this is kind of similar to what we saw last weekend when Charles Oliveira took the torch from Tony Ferguson. You know what I mean? We have
Mm-hmm.
Chito Vera, who's another really good kickboxer. He'll work the leg, he'll work the body, work the head. So good all around when he comes to his striking. And then although, he's just taking so much beatings. He's had such a great career, but because of that, he's gone through so many wars and he's gotten knocked out a lot. He took a lot of damage. So I do agree with you. I think Aldo can win this one, but I don't think he'll win Saturday. I think Chito Vera is a fresher man. I think he has a little bit of an advantage in the athletic standpoint as he's a little bit
Mm.
younger, and I think he'll get this one and win the striking coming up. Moving on to one of the next fights, we talked about Kevin Holland being the breakout fighter of this year. I think next year Michel Pereira might be the breakout fighter because he's so entertaining. In his last fight, I don't know if you actually saw, but in the face-offs, his opponent slapped him, and
Wow.
he told him he'll get him back in the fight. And in the third round of a fight where he was dominating every single minute, there was not 1 second where his opponent was winning that fight. Where he was dominating every second, he slapped him 3 times, open-handed slaps, and then he choked him out. I mean, that's if you can, get your payback in one spectacular way. Michel Pereira did that, and he's done so many great things. He beat Sanchez. He beat Sanchez, who's such a tough guy, Diego Sanchez, and it was ruled a no contest, but it was pretty much a win. He was dominating most of that fight, so I think he's a breakout fighter that could be coming in into next year. Now he's taking on Chaos Williams, who's so good. He won by knockout last time he came
Well,
out.
he won by murder against Al Hassan, and people forget who Razak Al Hassan is. He was a
A
golden
knockout
boy coming
artist.
into the fight. He was
Yeah,
a favorite. He was a
yeah.
favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a lot of people thought that he was going to flatline Chaos Williams, but man, like it's exciting, right? When you have a welterweight that can punch like that,
Hits
like
like a
how
heavyweight.
yeah, how do you not take him in this fight? I understand he's up against it. It's a rough fight. I wouldn't put a dime on this because I really don't know who's going to win.
Yeah, it's one of those fights that are so explosive it can go either way.
Yeah, exactly. This is a fight I'm just going to sit back and watch. I don't have a conviction either way. I had a conviction in the last fight. I do believe Cheeto Vera is going to win handily. This one, man, can Chaos Williams land one? I say he does. Say it happens for him in the second round. Okay, but this is something. It's not going to say anything about Pereira. It's going to say something about Chaos Williams. Like he has dynamite in his hands.
Yeah,
I say the
he's
magic happens for him one more time.
yeah. I definitely agree with you. It's the power hands, but man, I'm gonna hop on this Michel Pereira hype train. I think he's just so exciting, and maybe it's going against what I'm really thinking because Chaos Williams, he has better wrestling, and I thought when he was fighting his last fight that he was gonna use his wrestling a lot more, but he didn't. He actually won by knockout. But he has wrestling. He has the stand-up game that's so good, and he's really I think to me the more complete fighter. But I think Pereira is just a little bit more unique. He's not, Chaos Williams isn't facing a guy who's easy to make reads on or is easy to see what's coming. And I think for Pereira, his explosiveness and his uniqueness in striking might be what catches Chaos Williams off guard. I'm gonna say he gets a submission off of his back when
Mm.
Williams tries to take him down, and I'm gonna say Michel Pereira by submission. Now, moving on, we have another banger of a fight, and I mean, all 4 of these fights that we lifted so far could be fight of the night. Easily could be fight of the night. And we have another one. We have a former bantamweight title contender, Marlon Moraes, taking on an up-and-comer Rob Font. Who are you going with this fight?
I want to take Moraes, and I was looking at it earlier, and I was watching some of his fights, and let me look it up right here because there was one that I particularly looked at that I really liked. Let me see, where was his? Not the Jose Aldo. He got knocked out by Cejudo, but where is the
He fought
Aljamain
Sandhagen
Sterling?
last.
His
Oh, the
fight
Aldo
against
Sterling.
yeah, his fight against Aljamain Sterling. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna take him in the fight. I'm gonna take Marlon Moraes. Arrow up. I understand he's lost 2 out of his last 3, but look who he's lost to. Lost to Henry Cejudo. Okay, Henry Cejudo was he was rolling 7s and
It's Mini
11s at
Khabib.
that at that point in his career. So you're not gonna beat him. I'm gonna take Marlon Moraes. Let's say, hmm, he has 10 knockouts. I don't think he gets a knockout. He has 6 submissions. He wins a decision.
It was a decision. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I think wasn't it? He threw a leg kick or he threw a head kick to what's his name, to Sterling, to Aljamain Sterling, but he caught him with
Mm-hmm.
a knee to the head, and he put him out flat. Right. I think that
Mm-hmm.
was the fight we put him out flat. Yeah, that was a good fight. But Marias, like you said, he beat Aldo, and he's fought such stiff competition. He fought a Sandhagen who was 6'3", 6'2", against
Yes.
Marias is 5'7", so that's going to be hard for him to get inside. And then he fought Cejudo, who is the best. He's going to take you down. He's going to control you. He's going to do what Khabib does to you in that division. So he fought
Mm-hmm.
a lot of good guys. And, Rob Font, he's definitely an up-and-comer. He's such a good overall complete fighter, and he's an exciting fighter too. He's somebody that's exciting to watch. But I think Marias, he has that experience advantage. He's still young. He's had so many knockouts in the regional scene, and I think this is a fight where he'll come back into his own and make himself a legit threat in that division. I'm gonna take him by knockout. I'm gonna say second round knockout. Now, opening this card, we have Anthony Pettis, who's coming in potentially on the chopping block. We've seen a couple other names be on the chopping block of Dana White for the end of the year, taking on a fresh up and comer Alex Morono. How do you feel about that fight?
Well, speaking of being on the chopping block, it's interesting that they're still running with that Toyo Tires commercial because I know that it's a 5-year deal with Toyo Tires, and Anthony Pettis is still on those
Yep.
commercials.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't know how that works. Can you cut him off the roster and then keep him on those commercials? I don't know how that works.
You
You
can't
know
have him
what
on
I mean?
Bellator doing that.
But his opponent, Alex Morono, man, I guess his whole card is like a 6 degrees to Chaos Williams. I saw his fight against Chaos Williams, not pretty. Okay, I just don't see how I don't see how you get off the ground in that one. Although I'm looking at his fights and he fought Nico Price. I don't remember that fight. I guess that's a fight that I want to go see. It was a no contest. I don't know what that's about. So I don't know if he tested positive after the fight or Nico Price tested
I'm not
positive after the
sure. I'm
fight
not sure. I have to see
because
what
he has a
happened
no
there.
contest against Nico Price, and I don't
All
remember
right.
that fight. So I guess that's something I want to go see. But I did see him against Chaos Williams. Man, I don't know if you get off the ground to beat a guy with that much experience like Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis is going to be basically the main event of the prelims. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a good spot for him. It's a
Yep.
good spot for him to start filling out some cards. Man, I think he sticks. I think he wins, and I think he starts the long road back to main card viability.
Yeah, I think that's a good prediction. Morono's coming in. He's had such, and it looks like he got disqualified. I think that's what that no contest was for
Okay.
having that fight. But he has 5 wins by knockout, 6 by submission, 6 decisions. So Morono's coming in as a very well-rounded fighter. But then on the other side, you have Anthony Pettis with 8 knockouts, 9 submissions, and 6 decisions. So a much well-rounded, or such a well-rounded fight on his own too. And
Okay,
he's
I
only
got it here. Nico Price knocked out Alex Morono.
oh he
Okay?
did.
Yes, but then the fight was vacated
He smoked
after the
weed.
fight because Nico Price tested positive for marijuana.
Right, I remember that now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it gets worse for Alex Morono. So the more we look into him,
Right.
like I said, all I remember was his Chaos Williams fight. Not good. I don't think you get up from the ground and beat a guy with as much experience and as much at stake as Anthony Pettis has. Because Anthony
Yeah.
Pettis, I know that there's a pay scale as far as prelims and main cards. I think he wants to get back on a main card. This is his ticket back. He gets it done.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's coming in and he has something to prove. If he loses this fight, if he loses this fight, if Aldo loses this fight, I think both of those guys could get chopped by the end of the year. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So I think he's going to be the one that comes in and shows that he's a better fighter. I think this is a good fight for him because he's facing somebody who's relatively unranked, and he hasn't beat anybody that's over the top as far as names go. So I think
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Pettis is just going to show the level above of Anthony Morono that he is, and he's going to come in and he's going to win this fight. And I'm going to take him by decision. I think he comes in here. I think he wins the decision. I don't think he overextends himself like he would. I think this one he really just focuses on being smart and gets the win. Now,
Yeah.
next week, I don't think we have much of a fight. I think this is it for this year. I think this
Yeah,
is
I think
this is
we're gonna
2020.
have to we're gonna have to say our goodbyes to our viewers until next year. It's gonna be a big year in the fight game.
What
Uh,
fight are you looking forward to next year? Before we, I know Manny's ready to wrap up. He's had a long day.
wow.
What are you ready to look forward to for next year? Top three.
Well, the UFC is always McGregor Poirier, absolutely. Okay, but I'm gonna check out. I'm gonna play a little game called check out the boxing schedule on as we're on the show and see if I find anything that gets me excited. I know for a fact there's a heavyweight title fight coming up. Okay, so that's gonna be interesting.
Or what have been fights that aren't even booked yet? So, what are some predictions you have for next year?
Okay, I think
John
Terrence
Jones
Crawford.
Adesanya. John Jones Adesanya.
I'm gonna go ahead.
Probably.
Yes, that could happen in the summer maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll give you 2 fights that could happen in boxing. Okay, I think Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence will happen in November of next year, And I think we're gonna get Triple G Canelo 3 Cinco de Mayo weekend.
Can I throw
Okay,
in one more?
that's a fact. Go ahead.
I think we're gonna get Anthony Joshua Tyson Fury.
Absolutely,
Or
that's gonna
yeah,
happen.
yeah.
That's gonna happen. Now I'm looking at the schedule right here. January 2nd, right away, we're gonna have Ryan Garcia against Luke Campbell. That's
Oh
gonna
yeah.
be it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yep.
Okay, and then come on, January 30th in Moscow, Artur Beterbiev. I can't pronounce his name. Beterbiev. Beterbiev. Okay, Artur Beterbiev defends his title against Adam Danes. I don't know who Adam Danes is. Adam Danes, you're in trouble. Okay, that's gonna be a lot of fun. Calaplant, another 168-pound champion, defends his title January 30th. Kovalev makes his return on January 30th, also on the same card in Moscow. And that's pretty much it. They haven't gone that much deeper. February 20th, Miguel Berchelt makes his return against Oscar Valdez. I would have rather seen Miguel Berchelt, get into the Devonta Tank Davis conversation, but
Mm-hmm.
evidently it's not going to happen early in 2021. So, but that's something to look for. That's another one. I'll give you. That's another one. Miguel Burchell, Tank Davis,
Tank
maybe
Davis.
late 2021. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then I think for UFC, McGregor. I think he loses. I think Poirier takes it, but I think we're going to see a lot of good fights. I think we're going to see some proven fights. Do you think Khabib comes back, or do you think Cejudo comes back? Who's more likely?
I think Cejudo comes back. He's much more active. I think Khabib. Like you got to understand, like what's there for Khabib. Unless Dana White can show up and say, "Guess what? George St. Pierre is ready to fight you at 170." Maybe he'll do it.
Or
But
165.
yeah, but yeah,
Catch
they'll,
weight, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
they get into a catch weight.
Something.
Maybe that'll get him excited. And I think it's going to take something like that. I think it's going to take something like that because I don't think Khabib is going to be excited for Connor or for any of these guys. I don't.
What he did in Abu Dhabi against Justin Gaethje and
Yeah,
the event that it was, the police escort to the arena. I think
yeah,
he's going to have something grand, something in Russia. Can you imagine something in
yeah.
Russia, or to close out his career against GSP? That would be something fun to see.
I will
Uh,
give you something. Okay, I will give you something. Vladimir Putin. He's sick. Okay, he has some type of. I forgot what it was that I was reading that he had. He has a problem. He's stepping down as president of Russia in 2021. He's talking about having some events, okay, in his honor, okay,
mm-hmm.
whatever his honor is. He's kind of close friends.
With Khabib,
Was close friends with Khabib Nurmagomedov's his father, right?
Abdulmanap,
So
yep.
so Khabib actually has gone to visit Vladimir Putin. Who's to say Dana White doesn't place a call to Vladimir Putin and say, guess what? You can have the venue, you can have everything you want. I'll bring George St. Pierre. Let's do a big old event in Moscow against Khabib. George St. Pierre. Let's do
Hey,
it.
Dana White has a good relationship with Donald Trump, who's good boys with Vladimir Putin. You know what I mean? So this could be something that we could definitely see it because I understand why Dana White likes Trump because when UFC had nothing, Trump Casinos was putting on UFC shows, so he kept
Yeah.
them afloat. You know what I mean? So you can't blame him for having a good relationship with him. But so it might benefit him. Be good friends with Mr. Cheeto Man. Go get
Yeah.
your fight with Vladimir Putin.
Absolutely.
And
I think that's what's gonna take. Like Khabib, you can't get him excited. He's not. You can't get him excited for any of these guys. And these are guys that will get excited for to watch. But come on, let's face it. We watched that Justin Gaethje fight. It was
a squash.
just it was disheartening. Okay, it was disheartening because here is Justin Gaethje, a guy who's a killer. We know he's a killer,
Murder.
and then it was disheartening. It was bad.
It was he wanted to put him to sleep instead of doing an armbar because his parents were in his arena. That's how nice Khabib was. Instead of doing an armbar and he knew
Yeah.
Justin Gaethje wasn't going to tap and he knew Justin Gaethje's parents were in the arena, instead of doing an armbar and hurting Justin Gaethje, he transitioned to a triangle to put him to sleep like a nice man. That's how nice Khabib is. And with that, I don't know if you have anything to say to everybody watching. I hope you guys have a good holiday season. Hope everybody's safe and we'll see you guys in 2021.
See you next year.